Well, as we told you earlier this hour, Defense Secretary Mark Esper made headlines this weekend when he seemed to contradict the president's explanation for the airstrike that killed General Soleimani. Now, Esper said that he had not seen any hard evidence that Iran was targeting U.S. embassies. CBS News White House correspondent Weijia Jiang has been following this story, and she joins us now from the White House. So what is the latest, Weijia?
Good morning, Anne-Marie. The White House is adamant that Soleimani was about to carry out attacks on Americans and he had to be stopped. But you are right. The Defense Secretary created much more confusion yesterday when he contradicted one of President Trump's most specific claims about the nature of Soleimani's threats.
I didn't see one with regard to 4 embassies.
Defense Secretary Mark Esper acknowledged Sunday that he saw no specific threat against 4 U.S. embassies by Qassem Soleimani, contradicting President Trump, who earlier claimed that's why he authorized a strike that killed the Iranian general.
I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies.
But Esper insisted the lack of hard evidence did not mean the president's assumption was wrong.
What I'm saying is I share the president's view that probably my expectation was they were going to go after our embassies.
Esper's explanation mirrors how other top administration officials have tried to explain how a threat can be both imminent and vague at the same time.
Those are completely consistent thoughts, but it was very clear. Qassem Soleimani himself was plotting a broad, large-scale attack against American interests.
The White House has a long wish list for changes in Iranian behavior, including curbing nuclear weapons development and stopping support for terror proxy groups. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien said the tough stance on Iran is paying off and hinted it could force potential negotiations.
Iran is being choked off, and Iran's going to have no other choice but to come to the table.
Democrats say the discrepancies between President Trump and his inner circle add to their initial concerns that the hit on Soleimani was not justified.
They are overstating and exaggerating what the intelligence shows. And when you're talking about justifying acts that might bring us into warfare with Iran, that's a dangerous thing to do.
So, Weijia, the Wall Street Journal has been reporting that the president told some of his associates that he was under pressure from Republican senators to deal with Soleimani. That's new information to me. Do we know whether or not the impeachment and the pressure has had an impact on the relationship that he has with lawmakers?
Well, here's what we know for certain, that regardless of what decision President Trump is making, if it has to do with those Republican senators in Congress, it is going to be a factor, because impeachment, whether it is the news of the day or not, is certainly the undercurrent of everything that is running through this White House right now. And certainly he understands that it's not only about whether he's ultimately removed from office, about whether the Senate has the numbers to do that, but also, for votes along the way. For example, whether there will be enough Republican defectors to bring new witnesses, to allow new evidence into the record whenever the Senate ultimately holds its trial. So, yes, certainly the president weighs that in when he's making these decisions, and he's aware that, among the Republican caucus, there are some lawmakers that are much more hawkish than others when it comes to military actions against Iran. But I think the bigger picture here is the matter of who is surrounding him when he's making decisions like authorizing a strike to take out Soleimani. And his top military commanders are far more cohesive than they have been in the past. That's why we saw such swift action. And so when the president wants to do something, if he has that support around him rather than contradicting voices in his ear, then that action is going to turn into an execution. And so, or rather, that idea will turn into an execution. And so I think that's also why we saw what happened with Soleimani. But to answer your question, absolutely, impeachment is always on the president's mind, even when he says it is not. I will say that if he factored in Republicans in this decision making, it may have backfired, because not everybody is on board. We know that Rand Paul and Mike Lee are 2 very fired up GOP senators who say the evidence that they saw did not justify the Soleimani strike, and they would be willing to support a resolution to limit the president's war power. So it's always a gamble when you make it a political calculation.
So true. Before I let you go, I got to bring up something we haven't talked about in a while. Just this went off, the travel ban. Apparently, the White House is considering expanding the travel ban.
That's right. CBS News has confirmed that there are even drafts of this potential expansion floating around the West Wing, but the specifics are not there yet. What we do know is there's a possibility that 7 additional countries would be added to the current travel ban. You know, obviously, if you'll remember when we were talking about this a lot, Anne-Marie, it was especially during the election and right when the president took office, because this really resonated with members of his base as he said that this was something necessary to protect the country. And so it's not surprising that here we are about to really jump into the next election, and this is coming up again. The White House has not explicitly denied that an expansion is happening. In fact, we heard from Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley, who said that the travel ban has been very successful in protecting our country already. And he says, while there are no new announcements at this time, common sense and national security both dictate that if a country wants to fully participate in U.S. immigration programs, they should also comply with all security and counterterrorism measures. So it's not a no, it's not a yes, but certainly it wouldn't be surprising if they officially announce an expansion.
Right. Weijia Jiang, thank you.